Every Dungeons and Dragons group needs one. Every party is led by one, and every tale is woven by one. That's right, I'm talking about the DM. Today, we're going to be talking about 10 tips for new DMs. My name is Justin Davis, and this is Critical Thinking. Tip number one, get used to the material. If you're a new DM, maybe you've been a player for quite some time, maybe you already know some of the material. But most likely, if you've never DM'd before, it's possible that you've never really dug into the DMG. That's right, the Dungeon Master Guide. If you haven't really gotten into the Dungeons Master Guide, it's probably something you need to do. The DMG is packed full of incredible information that you can use in every game that you run, every campaign. Right now, you could be reading the DMG instead of watching this video and probably getting more from it. They're professionals. Knowing your resources is going to be one of the most important things you can do. Having the information going into a campaign, going into a game as a new DM is going to be important to setting up a structure and the rules that you want to run in your game. That's right, rules. There's going to be more conflict in your party over rules than probably anything else. And ultimately, you are the DM, and it's your choice. So you have to understand and make the decision on what's right, what's wrong, what do I want to let slip by, and what do I really need to put a stop to. So knowing your rules is going to give you a huge break when it comes to being a dungeon master. It's something that you need. So knowing all of your resources is going to be one of the most important things. Getting into your monster manual, understanding what the challenge rating means, the CR rating, knowing how that works with your players. All players are different. So knowing the different CR that you're going to run is going to be pretty important to understanding how your players are going to either be completely killed off in the first game or how they're going to thrive until level 15 when they face the evil lich Bachimato. Yeah, you can use that. That's a good name. It's important that you get into your books, know your material, and do some research before you DM. Don't just jump into it willy-nilly thinking, I'm going to be the greatest DM in the world. I'm going to be Chris Perkins. I'm going to be Matt Mercer. I'm going to be another great DM. Hopefully you do become a great DM. But you don't want to be like them. You want to be your own DM. You want to play things your way. It's your game and your rules. Get into your book. Know the rules. Know your monsters. And know your players. The more resources you have and the more information you have is going to help you set up a long-lasting campaign that your players are going to enjoy. Tip number 2, know what your players like. It's up to you as the DM to know what your players enjoy. What makes them tick during the game? Do your players enjoy more combat or do they enjoy more roleplay? It's your job as the new DM to find those things out, to get an idea of what makes your players tick. What do they enjoy the most? If it's a group that loves combat through the whole game, and all you're giving them is moments of roleplay and tiny little specks of combat, the group's not just they're just not going to enjoy the game, guys. So it's important that you have a conversation with your players before you even get into the game. Make sure they know what you kind of enjoy and what they enjoy. And trade off. This isn't just about the DM, this is about the DM weaving a tale for the players. If you want your players to be involved and really enjoy your game, it's going to take you having a conversation with them and finding out what they like. If they like more combat, make sure to throw a little more combat in every game that you have. Even if it's just a small battle, use theater of the mind if you have to. Maybe it's the tacticalness of the battle. If so, maybe you don't use as much theater of the mind and you have some kind of grid laid out where they can use miniatures and they can go for strategies, working with each other and as teammates, as a group. Combat can be extremely boring or it can be extremely fulfilling in a game. It's all up to you to weave that tale. If you don't like combat as much, but your players do, find ways where you can weave a tale in there with the combat. Some players are going to enjoy just a storytelling game. So weave a lot of role play into your games. But make sure to add a little combat too. Combat's going to be important to any game that you run. It gives you a way to fulfill things and make it a little difficult as well. Have you ever been in a incredible boss battle and it gets down to you and your last teammate and you're trying to defeat the Great Lich Bahumachakapa? That's right. You can use that name too. It's important for you as the DM to find out what your players enjoy. Talk to them, communicate with them, and in the long run, you'll have a much better campaign and it'll turn out much better if you just decide to help your players enjoy the game more. Remember, you're the DM. You get to weave the tale that could take up months of your players' lives. So make sure to weave something that they're going to enjoy, something that they'll remember. If they want a dungeon crawl, give them a dungeon crawl. But if you want to add some role play in there, you have to do that too. Remember, it's all about give and take. Talk to your players, find out what they like, let them know what you like, and then have a good game. Tip 3. Pick whether you want a pre-built or homebrew campaign. What's great about Dungeons and Dragons is you have so many different options for campaign settings. If you're a new DM, maybe it's intimidating creating your whole world. I can say for experience, it wasn't always easy running a campaign in Dawnshire. When I first started, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know how Dawnshire was going to grow. I didn't even know if the players were going to like it. But I had an idea and I put pen to paper. And that's one of the best ways to start. Find out if you want to build your own world or if you want a pre-built world. What's great about Dungeons and Dragons is you have so many different settings, guys. If you want to run a game in Avernus or the Sword Coast or Icewind Dale, you can do that. There's books and there's campaign settings with pre-built storylines already in there. You can take those stories and you can alter them and tweak them to where it's a game especially for you. Certain books like Storm King's Thunder, Curse of Strahd, it's going to give you a campaign, a setting, and a storyline that you can follow very tightly or loosely. But if you are a DM and you really want to create your own world, don't be afraid to do it. Jump in. Let your players know, hey, there may be a little things here and there that I don't even quite know, but we're going to work around it. Your players are going to enjoy if you're just putting your all into your game. It doesn't matter if you've built it or if someone else has in a book. All it needs is for you to do your very best. So find out what kind of game you want. Either you build your own world or you run a world out of a book, out of a campaign, out of a story from the internet. You can find all these things. There's so many different resources. You just got to look. And if you want to build your own game, pen to paper and get it done. You can do it. I believe in you. It's possible. Difficult, but possible. Tip 4. Plan, but not too much. It's important that you as the DM plan your games. There have been so many games that I have sat in on that the DM just did not plan. And because of that, the game just didn't go very smooth. The DM didn't know what was really going on, didn't know how to tell the story. There was a bunch of different mishaps with the storyline. How could this player be doing this if you said this? And it just makes things kind of messy. So making sure that you have an outline for your game is going to be very important. But you have to remember, if you plan every single detail, sometimes your players are going to be trapped by this. Using every detail and planning every single detail of a campaign can sometimes make the players feel like they don't really have a choice. One of the most beautiful things about Dungeons and Dragons is the fact that your players have choice. They have decisions to be made. It isn't a video game. There's no limits in Dungeons and Dragons. But if you, the DM, plan out every single detail and you make sure that your players go through every single detail, it's just going to feel like another linear video game type storyline. And you don't want that. You want your players to feel like they are contributing to the storyline. They are making decisions that are affecting the outcome of the game. That's what's so important about role-playing games in general. It's them role-playing a character, and their action should mean something. So as you, the DM, you should be planning the game, but plan it loosely. Have a good structure. You want to make sure that you have enough structure to where your characters know what's kind of going on. You know what's going on. You don't get all topsy-turvy or confused when they ask you a simple question, but you also don't want to be so in depth with detail that you take away the fun from the game. So, for tip number 4, you want to make sure you plan. Just don't do too much. Do a little bit at a time. Don't shove a whole bunch of details down their throat. It can be lingered out a little bit. Build into a storyline. If you really want certain things to happen, let it happen in different sessions. It doesn't have to all be packed into one game session. Let your players have some fun. Let your players enjoy their characters. Learn who their characters are. In the long run, that's going to make your game better, and it's going to allow your players to have a lot more fun. Tip 5. Give NPCs life. There is nothing more boring in a campaign than when your players walk into a tavern or the blacksmith shop or an alchemist shop and your NPC just stands there mindlessly like a zombie. Guys, give your players, your NPCs, some life. Give them some livelihood. Make sure they have some kind of name. Have a good idea of the type of people you want in the cities, the villages that you go into. You got to remember, you are the DM. You wear 10 million different hats while you play this game. You're the alchemist. You're the blacksmith. You are the Fletcher, the Jarl, the king. You're the evil villain, Bahuchame. That's right. You can use that one too. You are going to play so many different parts. And I understand not everyone's cool with doing voices. Not everyone's comfortable with it. And as the DM, guess what? Good news, you don't have to do voices. But you can still add flavor to your NPCs. Me personally, I love to do voices. I think it gives all kinds of flavor to the NPCs that they run into. If they run into a smart mouthed dwarf, maybe I give him a Scottish kind of tone. What are you doing there, lad? Oi! Like that. Just giving a little bit of flavor to them. If it's a character they're going to maybe run into once, maybe it's a guard. Guards are never important. Maybe you just use your normal voice. But you still want to make sure that there's some kind of character. Make sure they have some kind of personality trait. Are they a jerk? Are they timid? Are they shy? Are they scared? Are they honorable? Are they chivalrous? It's up to you. Make sure that they have some kind of flavor. Some of your players' favorite NPCs sometimes are just going to happen out of the corner of your mind. One of my favorite characters I've ever created is a alchemist named Parthenax Deathbringer. A very flamboyant half-orc alchemist. And it was just supposed to be a fun character to play. I enjoyed it. The character became a important role in the game for the players. The players really loved the character. And it was just a random thought of giving the alchemist some kind of personality. So make sure that you do that. Sometimes you will plan out a character that's going to have this personality. And sometimes it just comes from the back of your mind. But make sure that you're giving them some type of personality traits. How they act, how they feel. You don't have to go too deep into it. If you're in a city, you're not going to plan out every single civilian in the city. But especially the characters that the players are going to be interacting with the most, give them some flavor. Flavor it up for your characters. Have you ever had boiled chicken? Well, boiled chicken alone sucks. But if you put some salt and pepper on it, it's much better. Salt and pepper your players. Okay? You want to make sure your NPCs have some flavor to them. It makes it more interesting for your players, and in the long run, you'll enjoy doing it more too. You don't have to do voices. Just give them a little bit of personality. When you do that, you're going to enjoy it, you'll have fun, and sometimes they'll even get a laugh out of you, which is even better. Tip 6. Giving the PCs backgrounds and story arcs. One of the most important things about Dungeons and Dragons is the growth of your player characters. If your players are going through a campaign and they're going from level 1 to level 15, that's going to be quite a few sessions you're going to be playing. It could be months or even years if you're going into that kind of level. Level 1 to 15, level 1 to 20. Wow. Guess what? During that time, there needs to be some character growth. There needs to be things that happen that change and mold the character's characteristics. If one of the player characters die, maybe that's going to alter and change the way some of your players think, some of your players feel, some of those characters, how they react. It's important to add certain storylines and story arcs that are going to affect your player characters. One of the best ways to do that is by asking, before the game begins, asking your player characters, your players, what who are their players? What's their background? Do they have a story? Ask for family heirlooms. Ask for family sigils. Ask for storylines. Ask for different things that you can use throughout your game to connect your players with the storyline. If you're able to connect your players with the storyline, it'll give them a way to drive toward the end of the game. So making sure that your players have this kind of target to where they want to go is going to be important. So ask your players before the game begins, what kind of character are you? Do you have troubles? Do you have fears? Do you have family heirlooms? Do you have a family sigil? All these different things can be used to affect the game and connect your players with your campaign. Tip 7. Don't be afraid to mess up. As the DM, you're going to have some flubs. You're going to have some mishaps, and you're going to make some mistakes. It's just a part of being human. That's what we are, right? You're not a roaring centaur made of perfect mithril metal. That would be one weird centaur. His name would probably be... Nope, not giving you one this time. You have to think of it yourself. It's important that you understand as the DM, you're going to make some mistakes. There's going to be times when some of your players go into a random building and they find a character and they say, "Hey, what's your name?" And you go, Phil? No one likes the name Phil in D&D. If they aren't a human, could you see a dwarf named Phil? Come on. But guess what? Sometimes it happens. The thing is, what's great about Dungeons and Dragons is you and your party can laugh about it. When you can't think of a name and you say something like, "The Dragonborn's name is Toby." It's funny. Your characters will laugh. You'll laugh. You'll have a good time. The Dragonborn will breathe his fire weapon and destroy your players. And that's ultimately what's most important. It's important that if you make a mistake, don't dwell on it. Just keep going. You got to be like that little bunny. Just keep going. Just keep going. Just keep going. As the DM, it's going to happen. I've done it a million times. I'm sure there are millions of other DMs that are much better than I am, and they will tell you they've messed up too. What's great about it is most of the times when you play D&D, you have a bunch of friends around you. They can laugh about it, you'll laugh about it. It'll just be a good time. Don't be worried about making a little mistake here and there. It's going to happen. Just have fun. Tip 8. Have creative battles. If you're going into an important battle, make sure that you do it in a way that your player characters are going to enjoy it and remember the battle. If you just put them in this big open room and it's just them versus a bunch of enemies, there's nothing memorable about that. You may have some effects, you may have some spells, you may have some different features that you use, and they may be in shock and awe, but at the end of the game, if there's nothing creative about it, your players probably won't remember. Add different obstacles in the room. If they're in a cave, make sure there's stalactites, stalagmites. Make sure that the ground is uneven. Maybe the terrain is a little rocky. Maybe there's a loop that goes around and it's 10 foot higher. They can climb it, they can walk up it, they can jump off of it. Make places where they can hide, where they can sneak, where they can duck behind to evade one of the blasts from the dragon or the salamander or the beholder. It's up to you to make your battles exciting and fun for your players. And the thing is, your battles don't have to be boring. Make them dynamic. Put them on the back of a cart. Maybe they have 15 feet of space that they can move on. Maybe they can throw the enemies off of the cart as they watch their bodies tumble to the ground and slam and kind of soar away as the cart just keeps going. The horses are going wild. It's dragging the carts. The cart beside you has the enemies on it. They're firing arrows at you. They're jumping from their cart to your cart. You have one of your players controlling your cart, ramming the other cart to make the enemies fall off or be distracted or run off the road into a tree, into a giant explosion of bloody death. Who knows? You're the DM. It's your choice. The thing is, you can do something like that, or you can put them in a room with 30 feet around them and they can just fight. And it's going to be boring and they're probably not going to remember much about it. Make your battles dynamic. Add things in there that your players can use. They can jump off of. They can enjoy. They can run away. They can hide. Do different things. Make sure that your combat is not just a stand there, hack, slash, hack, slash, hack, slash. Oh, something's dead. That's just boring. It's going to bore your players and it's going to bore you. Okay? If you want your players to enjoy combat, make it dynamic, make it fun. Add something to it. Add flavor to your combat, and I promise you and your players will enjoy combat a whole lot more. Tip number 9. Don't beat your players to death with the rules. In Dungeons and Dragons, rules are important. You need a structure to your game. As a DM, you have to know kind of how strict to be with the rules with your players. Some players enjoy rules heavy games and they want the rules. They want to play straight verbatim per the player's handbook and the Dungeons Master Guide. But there's going to be a lot of players that just kind of want a little bit of homebrew as well. So make sure that your players kind of know what you're wanting to run and what they enjoy as well. There's all kinds of different rules that are important about magic items and skills and combat and all these different kind of things, and it's going to be important to have that structure. But if you're constantly beating your players to death with the rules, then it's just not going to be enjoyable all the time. If every once in a while you can't just let one of your players do something great and fun because this rule says you have to do this first, then it's just not going to be as enjoyable for their players. If the players are doing this incredible role play and they're trying to make a diplomacy or they're trying to speak well and they need that charisma, but they are speaking to you, the DM, the player, whether it's a mayor or a king or a jarl or an evil villain named Cthulhu. You can use that one. If they're speaking well and they're making sense, then why not just let them have it? Let them enjoy that. Say, hey, I like that. You get an inspiration point, and I'm going to let that go. No inspiration roll, no charisma, nothing like that. You got it because you did good. Reward them for doing good. It's important not to beat the rules over your players' heads. Make sure that they know that there's certain things that you won't budge on, and that's okay. If your players are trying to take advantage of some combat and they're trying to make players that deal 8,000 damage in one attack by using all of their skills and all of their key point, magic point, situational awareness, whatever it is, and they're trying to take advantage of you, put a stop to that. But if they're just trying to have some fun, they're trying to enjoy their character, just let them have it. Let them enjoy it. You and your players will enjoy the game a lot more without having to go to the player's handbook every 5 seconds. Going to the player's handbook, not sometimes it's going to be extremely important. You want to make sure that there's spells that are being done right, the saving throws that you need. If you don't know what a saving throw is that you need for a spell, you need to pull out that player's handbook, find the spell, and that's okay. But if you're running to the player's handbook every 5 minutes to look up a rule, it's not going to be fun to you or the players, and it's just going to get boring really fast. So, tip number 9, don't beat your players to death with the rules. Enforce good rules, but just don't beat them to death with them. It's just not fun. In fact, it sucks. Tip number 10, and possibly the most important rule: have fun. As the DM, there's going to be times when you have to really be put on the ball, but you want to have fun. Make sure your players are enjoying themselves. If you get so serious about a campaign that you can't enjoy it, maybe you need to reevaluate things in the campaign. Maybe it's too serious. If there's not laughter, if there's not fun going on in the game, then there's an issue. You should be having fun. After all, this is Dungeons and Dragons, the greatest game ever created. You, your friends, whoever's playing, you get to become these different characters. There's going to be some outrageous characters. Have fun with it. Enjoy yourself. Not every campaign is going to have every player character becoming this incredible, chivalrous knight. And they speak like this, and they speak very elegant. Some are going to kind of speak like this, and they're going to be kind of twitchy, and they're not going to want to know what to do. They're going to be weird, plain and simple. And guess what? You have to match that energy. So have fun with it. Find someone who's just as crazy as they are, who will grab them, throw them up into the air, blow them a kiss, and then spin around twirling in the air with them. It's important. Make sure to have fun. Guys, you should be laughing in every game. You should be having your players laughing. You should be smiling. You should just enjoy it. Enjoy the time you have with the players and unfolding this wonderful game that you've created. Have fun, guys. That's the most important thing I can tell you. As a dungeon master, I've been a DM longer than I have been a player. It feels like sometimes I am always the DM and I never get to play. Don't be that DM. Okay? No, if you enjoy it, do it as much as you can. Your players will thank you for it. Have fun, enjoy yourself, let your players have some fun, smile, laugh, and enjoy the game of Dungeons and Dragons. After all, that's what it's all about, right? To conclude this video, I just want you to understand that you're going to have a bunch of different ways that you DM. The way that you DM is going to be different from the way that I DM. You can take some of these tips or take absolutely none of them. It's completely up to you. In the end, you got to be the DM that your players are going to trust and enjoy. So make it count. Have fun with it. Being the DM is a great responsibility when it comes to playing Dungeons and Dragons. The DM is one of the most pivotal and important characters in the game. So make sure that you do your absolute best. You don't have to be perfect. Your players aren't going to expect perfection. They're just going to want to enjoy themselves. For a couple hours, they're going to just want to have a little bit of fun. And that's what's going to be important. That's what's going to make the difference on if you're a good DM or if you're a bad DM. Just having fun. Letting your players have fun. Telling a story and in the end, making it worthwhile. Build up your players. Build up your NPCs. Build up your world. Just enjoy yourself. Sit back and watch the story unfold. It's a great feeling when you finally get to the end of the campaign. Your players have beat the last boss, Phil, and everything is done. Your players wipe away the sweat from their brow from the fake fight they were just in with the evil necromancer Phil. It's important that you just play it, enjoy it, and yeah, I guess that's about it, guys. Watch all kinds of different DMs, get tips from them, get tips online. There's so many different ways. You don't got to be perfect. You just got to want to enjoy it. So take the time and try DMing once in a while. I promise your normal DM will appreciate it, and I think you'll enjoy it too. DMing's pretty awesome. So, with that being said, guys, we hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like and subscribe. If you do like and subscribe, maybe you even want to hit ding 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 that notification bell. We would appreciate it, and that'll give you an update on when the next videos come out. So if you enjoyed this, like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we will see you later. That was Critical Thinking.